I was at a place where I thought I've written an awful lot of long novels and I wanted to write something quite short. So I thought I would write this short novella, 40,000 words, about a woman fleeing from Dublin to the west coast of Ireland to confront a lengthy marriage and her part in enabling the crimes that her husband has committed against children during that time. But halfway through writing the first draft of that, this supposedly short novel turned into something else completely. Because then I had the idea of actually using the theme of water, which was running through it, expanding it into four themes: water, earth, fire, and air, and writing four by 40,000 word pieces, where a minor character from each would become the narrator of the next piece. But we would look at sexual crime from four perspectives: enabling, complicity, perpetrator, and victim. So, all told, it became The Elements as one big book eventually. So Willow is the narrator of the first section, Water. She is, as I mentioned, a woman who is gone to one of the Aran Islands to think about those years and ask herself, did she know what her husband was doing? And if she didn't know, why didn't she know? So she spends a year there trying to understand that. The second section, Earth, is narrated by a young man called Evan, who longs to be an artist, but he simply isn't good enough. But what he is good enough at is football, as in British football. And he's very talented at that, but he's not really interested in it. But he ends up becoming one. But he ends up in a trial where he and one of his teammate is accused of rape, and he's accused of complicity in that rape by filming it. And over the course of that section, we don't know whether he is guilty or not guilty yet, but we look at his life leading up to that moment and follow the court case. The third section, Fire, is narrated by Freya, who is a very respected surgeon, a burns unit surgeon, cares a lot for her patients, but is herself a very, very damaged human being. And she is the perpetrator of crimes. So she abuses young boys. She goes out, she finds young boys, has sex with them, and really destroys their emotional lives. And we learn through her section what it is in her life that has led her to make these terrible choices. And we follow some of her backstory. The final section, Air, takes place on an airplane, flying from Sydney to back to Ireland, and it tells the story of Aaron, who is has been a victim of abuse when he was a teenager. He turns 40 on the day this book is set, and he is traveling with his own 14-year-old son. And he is at that point in his life where most parents are most worried for their children when they're very small. He's most worried for him now, aged 14, because he knows the dangers that are out there for boys and girls that age. So even though he's a very kind and loving person and a his son is a good kid, he's so overprotective at this point that he's driving his son away. So the days they spend together traveling from one side of the world to the other is either going to drive them further apart or maybe bring them closer together. I think what I would say to like young writers approaching something like this is that you have to make your characters as ambiguous as possible, as complex as possible, because all of us in life are complex people. Nobody really is either a monster or a saint. Most of us are somewhere in the middle and trying to do our best. But as I may have said to you before in our previous interview, that we're all capable of moments of great kindness, but we probably all have moments that we're ashamed of in our lives. That's just what makes us human. And for a reader to be engaged in a book and engaged with a character, we have to show as many facets of that character as possible. And that's not to justify anything terrible that one of these characters might do, but to make them more credible, to make them more interesting to the reader, and hopefully for the reader to get to the end of the book and want to share it with someone else and say, what do you think about that? What do you think of that character? What do you think of that story? I was a bit unsettled by the end of it. I don't really believe in sort of just tying everything up with a neat bow, because I just don't think life works like that. Probably the fact that each of them, water, earth, fire, and air, are all things that we need to live, but they are all capable of killing us too. We can't go more than a few days without water, but we can drown in water. We need heat, we can get burned. Um, they're all things that can kill us. So it's I was trying to link that to these four different characters and the four experiences that they have. That the universe itself is capable of giving us life, but it's also capable of taking it away from us.